fully amortizing, balloon notes, interest only, all of these different terms that you might need to know if you are dealing with private capital. And so last week we talked about raising private capital through IRAs, but this week what we're going to talk about is a little bit broader scale of how do you structure that private capital to make sure that you can fund all of your deals. So stay tuned. We're going to have a great time today giving you some great ideas on how you can get all of your deals funded through other people's money. We'll see you on the other side.
Teach me something.
What's up, everybody?
And we're back
How
for
are
another
ya?
episode of Grant Teach Me Something. I
Yeah.
had to throw that in because apparently I've missed out a couple.
I know. It's been very sad to me.
Sorry.
It's good to see you today, man.
Good to see you too. Happy
Before-
Wednesday.
Before we get started, we just want to wish a belated birthday to our beloved Sonia,
Happy birthday again.
who has been so faithful in watching over time and such a great example of the community that we have built around Propelio TV. It's such a cool thing that you guys as viewers here are in a very special situation where we're all on the same boat. We're all working together to get to a better plane of life and existence, and it's a lot of fun.
And speaking of community, and just to throw a disclaimer out there, Grant is extremely busy today, so we're not going to be doing live comments, but we will be doing comments after the show and throughout the week, like we always do.
Yeah.
So, but please keep the questions coming. Please keep the comments, coming along, both on Facebook, YouTube, podcasts alike. But don't feel like we're not paying attention because we
sure.
still see it. We still love you guys.
And
Got
for sure.
stuff to
And
do.
exactly. And this is actually good news for you guys. So I have a mastermind today, tomorrow, and Friday with some of the beasts in the industry, the Eddie Speeds, the Mitch Stevens, the Blake Yarboroughs, these guys that are just doing a ton of deals. So we're going to learn some really cool stuff this week that I plan to bring back to you guys and teach you. That said, I do want to tell you that this afternoon at 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern, we're going to be going live on my Facebook. So follow me at Grant Kemp. Just follow me. We've got a link on the comments there. Because Mitch, Eddie, and I are going to go live talking about the Texas 100. We've got some really, really, really scary and detrimental legislation coming down the line that we have to act. We have to pull together. We have to do this as a community and have our voice heard and work the way that government works and make sure that we are protecting the right for ethical investors to go out and work ethically and do things the right way, but still chasing out the bad.
Can we get a link dropped in the comments?
Awesome.
Okay, cool, thanks.
So yeah, we'll drop that in the comments, text 100, but join me this afternoon at 3:30, okay? So
Private
let's get into private capital. Private capital, I have funded all of my deals through private capital. Anything that is not done through Subject 2 has been done through private capital.
And another nugget, well, it's not necessarily a nugget, but just a random
flake?
factoid.
Oh,
It's not even a
factoid.
flake. It's
Okay.
just a random trivia. Is like Daniel Moore has never had a hard money loan. I mean, we love our hard money partners. We
I
love
haven't either.
Kristen, Bay Mountain. Love Kelly at Easy Street. Love. There's so many of them.
Yep.
That have been really nice to us with our sponsorship events. But he has never had hard money because he's always had private capital.
Neither have I. I've never once taken out a private money or a hard money loan. Came close. There was a time where one day I had like 7 deals pop up, and I'm like, ah! So I'm like, Kelly, help! So we, but long story short, that still all went private capital, right? Private capital is such a powerful tool for the investor to have because what we don't fully appreciate a lot of times, what we forget, is that not everybody is watching at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, learning how to do these strategies, learning how to get in there and actually get the real estate done. There's a lot of people who are 3, 4, 10 steps behind where you are right now. And what I find from a lot of my students, from a lot of the viewers, is that we tend to forget that about ourselves. What we tend to do is we forget the things that we have as strengths, and we start to only push towards what we see other people successful at. So what happens is that there's a lot of people that have a ton of money in their IRA account and wherever, in their cash and wherever, they've got all this money, and all they know about investing in real estate is, hey, I got to go out there and learn how to invest in real estate. So they're starting at this game.
Stars, all making the money.
Right, yeah, whatever, Flip and Chip from HGTV tell me that all I have to do is, whatever.
Chip.
So what they do is they go to these events and they're trying to learn how things are working, right? One of the phrases, the key phrase to this networking that we talk about, that I preach, that I have seen change people's networking ability, and we talked about last week, is opening up every networking conversation with, so, A, how can I help you? And then saying, what are you trying to leverage? Are you leveraging your time, your money, or your knowledge, right? And there's an answer for us to work with them on each one of these items, but we're not going to talk about time, we're not going to talk about knowledge today. Those are different episodes. What we're going to talk about today is money, because there will be people that have money.
And there's something you just said that I don't want to skirt by too much, which was focus on the things that you're good at, not necessarily go try to learn a new skill. If you're really good at doctoring, keep doctoring and let somebody else like a Grant Kemp, like a Daniel Moore, like I'm drawing up like RJ Bates. Let these people place your capital.
Somebody watched last week when they were on the show.
I was here. Keep doctoring. Use those skills to do what you're good at.
Right.
And let someone else who knows how to do the real estate thing, let them do the real estate thing.
Yeah, absolutely, because again, guys, we forget to appreciate our own strengths. It's part of our human nature. It's part of why people get depressed off of social media stuff, is we want to look at what everybody else has and we forget the strengths that we have, right? We have strengths. The person watching this episode today that's part of the Propelio TV community that's watching Grant Teach Me Something, you have a strength in knowledge, right? You have a strength and the ability to close something. You're a part of a community that's going to help you close. And you might not have a strength in having a ton of capital, and you may have a strength of having money, but no matter how much money you have, guys, real estate's expensive, and you'll spend it, right? So how can you leverage that out? Well, you find the folks that have the money but don't have the knowledge and make them the yin to your yang. Part of good business is always finding somebody else that has a strength where you have a weakness and that you have a strength where they have a weakness, and you partner together so that both of you can win. It is a Daniel is one of those guys. So I've known Daniel, since 2012-ish, something like that. I trained him how to do this creative financing kind of stuff. He's made a ton of money off of that stuff. Obviously, you guys know his repertoire from there. I had to really hound him to get out and meet people and get out and talk and speak at these events.
Clearly it worked.
It worked, and I'm glad because he does speak. And look at the impact that he's made on this community, right? I had to really hound him about that right at the beginning, because I was like, dude, you're amazing at this stuff. People would really, really benefit from what you have to say. But he was and I've heard him say on several accounts, man, I wish I had appreciated the power of a network earlier in my career.
Absolutely. I think he appreciates everything if he would have learned everything earlier in his career. Just like anybody. I wish I would have worked with Daniel 10 years ago versus a couple years ago.
Right.
I wish I would have known you when you had hair. There's so many things. Anyway, sorry.
So, what I'm getting at, though, is the networking is such an important part of the private money raise, right?
Absolutely.
You have to get out. You have to become part of that community. What we're doing here is helping grow that community, so you already have people that are of like mind that you can reach out to. You already have areas like Roughneck to Real Estate, Corey Thompson's Facebook group, which is a phenomenally active group that has folks in there with capital ready to lend.
And I'll throw it out there is check out the comment section of this feed right now. There's people watching right now that either are looking for capital or looking to place capital.
Right.
And we've seen throughout the past year and a half in our feeds, deals get done and deals get funded just by interacting with everybody on the feed itself. So please, keep those comments coming, keep the questions coming, and interact with each other. That's the whole beauty of this whole Propelio community thing. We actually talked a little bit about yesterday with RJ and
good.
Cassie about the community aspect.
That's awesome. Well, we have a theme this week then.
Woo.
Good. So, on that note, as part of the comments here, I want you to comment. Let's move to this next section. Let's talk about the psychology of it. I want you to comment if you've ever lost money in the stock market, okay? Comment right, yeah, exactly. Comment if you've ever lost money in the stock market. And because we need to understand that we are not asking somebody to lend us money. We are telling them that we are able to place their capital. That's one of the big nuggets that I mentioned last week, and a lot of people really took that away as a strong, takeaway from the show.
It was huge, yeah.
Is it's a different mindset.
Can we read, Thomas? Can we get that nugget just to restate that? I know you did it last week, but just to restate it because it was that was the most powerful thing to take away from that episode.
So my phrase to explain that, here's the nugget. Money buys groceries, capital invests in businesses, right? So we are not asking somebody to lend us money. we are telling somebody that we are able to place their capital. It's a big difference in a small semantic.
And then as far as the semantics and the differences aside, it is still essentially a loan. They're not JVing.
Oh, it's absolutely a loan.
Yeah, they're not on the deed other than the the deed of trust, the promissory note, or that thing. They're not your partner on it. They're just getting their whatever percentage that you agree to.
Absolutely. You negotiate your terms and that's what they get paid. But they understand that as placing capital, right, it's a different mindset. Capital invests in businesses. Money buys groceries. They're less attached to capital as they are to money, right? So it helps you kind of hit a center point. Now, anybody that's part of my negotiation quick tips, which you can see a lot of on the Propelio Academy, go to propelio.com/academy if you want to see those tips with some text tidbits to go along with that. I'll drop a link in the comments for you on how you can sign up for my negotiation quick tips series. And we also have a negotiations module on creativecashflow.com, not so subtle plug. But if you're a part of any of these, you understand that a big part of our negotiating for anything is honesty, right? Wordplay, because words matter, right? And posturing in certain ways, right?
And real quick, I just want to jump on the subtle, not so subtle plug. One thing about this business is the network and having access to certain people. So like when you do go to a Quest Trust event and you are able to network and meet people with capital, you do have that 30 seconds to make an impact, whatever. It's just like dating or whatever, first impressions of friendship. But when you do join like a mentorship, whoever it is, whether it's grants or whoever, you are paying for knowledge, but you're also paying for access.
For sure.
So take Grant, for instance. If you see him out and about in the meetups, you do have 30, 45 sets of access because you're not a meanie head. And then if you watch Propelio every Wednesday, you have access to watch the comments below. But other than that, the only way you have access is what?
I do a weekly Q&A with creativecashflow.com every Monday night. And like I was up on Monday night at my office until I did like a 2+ hour Q&A session because we had 2+ hours worth of questions coming in from people, and I want to make sure that you guys have that opportunity.
And that wasn't a subtle plug, that was me. I don't know.
Teeing up, right?
It's a tee up.
Yeah. So
anyway, my point there is check out Creative Cash Flow if you haven't,
and become part of that community as well. And part of that too, and I swear we'll leave from this, but I paid a lot of money to get in this mastermind that I'm talking about. Now I was invited to the mastermind, don't get me wrong, but I still paid a lot of money to get in the mastermind. It's because I'm sitting there with these dudes where, like Eddie, he's done $3.5 billion worth of notes. Don't you think that I'm going to get an idea that's worth $15,000, $20,000 out of that group? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or Mitch, he posted something on Facebook the other day about showing his truck from '98, and it was like, owner finance. Yeah. He had a magnet. I was like, wow, did magnets exist that many years ago?
That's funny. So there's something to be said too for buying into something because the other people that are in that community also take it seriously enough to buy into it, and you will learn stuff from there. So back to the private capital side of things. So
sorry for that tangent.
Yeah, sure. We're looking at private capital. We're looking at placing capital for somebody. Now the position or the point in time where and I do encourage you, if you didn't watch last week, go back after today's episode and watch last week's episode because we do go into a lot of stuff that is a core. I mean, you got some. I felt like last week it was like gold nugget after gold nugget after gold nugget. I was just pouring information for you guys on how to negotiate your way into the deal and how to create the conversation around private capital. Okay.
Actually, that was the catalyst for the new golden shower that we did, or Travion did, because there were so many of them. They're like, let's just keep. Let's see it again, Thomas. It's like.
Yeah, money buys groceries.
That wasn't a nugget, but it was the nugget of nuggets.
I was just going to throw it. So watch that one because it's going to throw so much stuff at you on creating that conversation. What I want to focus today's conversation more on is somewhat of an extension on that. And whereas last week was really focused on the IRA side of things, let's just talk about that general structure of the private capital. How are we figuring out what kind of terms not to ask for, but to offer? Okay. What are we offering?
I think that's another one right there. Well, I mean, it's just a variation of what you always keep saying.
Right.
Instead of ask, offer.
Right, exactly. And what this does is it's there's a lot of folds to this, guys, from the psychological standpoint of we are now taking a position of authority in this conversation. You know, I was watching the girls at Iron Heel, and they were walking through the this show, the show that we did on the IRA lending. And one of the things I think either Jay Lee or Kristen pointed out,
I think it was Kristen.
she was like, "Man, that is just such a great posturing statement of like the placement of capital."
She's gonna kill me because she narrowed it down what you said to like 3 words, and it was like, "Oh, that's so good."
Yeah.
And then she was mad at me because I didn't like do the whole quote thing.
That's funny.
It's not your quote. You just took Grant.
To Grant's quote. So, so there is an aspect of when I have been the most successful in my negotiating, it is when I am taking control of that conversation and leading that conversation the way that we need to go, but much in the same way. So, you know, forgive me for going down this road, but that's, you know, in biblical terms, right? When we talk about leadership as a man in a family, right? I know that one of the things that a lot of people have problems with Christianity is they say, you know, because Christianity and biblically, like, it is the man has the final decision, the husband has the final decision, and the wife is supposed to get on board with that. And a lot of feminists have a problem with that, and I understand that, right? I get it. It does call the female the weaker sex, right? And in our marriage counseling coming in, our marriage counselor pointed out something very great about that, which is he pointed to his shelf and he said, "Look, this shelf over there has a baseball on it and has a crystal piano. That crystal piano is weaker than that baseball by all accounts. However, it's about 6,000 times more valuable than that baseball is," right? So the husband in the relationship, yes, gets the final say, but nothing that is done through that final say should be done without an absolute and entire focus on how that affects the wife, right? I should never put my foot down on something without one of the most major parts of that decision being, how is this going to affect my wife and how she feels about this situation? And we both have that agreement that, yes, I get that final say, but I'm not going to make that final say without her best interest in mind, okay? Long tangent to say, there's some similarities in negotiating with that kind of mentality in mind. I am somebody that takes control of this conversation. I am the guy that's going to say, let me place your capital. Let me tell you what my terms are. But I'm not going to throw out some terms without keeping in mind, this guy has worked really hard for this capital.
Right.
This person is trusting me to place their capital and perform for them, and that's a big deal.
And I think that's a good spot to say, and we've said many times here, whether you make money or not make money on a deal, if you're using private capital, if you want to stay in this business, regardless of how much money you lose, you pay back your private capital.
Absolutely.
You know, like if you take a $10,000 hit or haircut, you pay back your loans because this community is small. Even if you're hitting up a doctor and who doesn't know anybody in the business, it'll get out somehow that you're not paying back your people.
Right.
And then on the flip side of that, if you do lose money, what's the best way to gain somebody's trust of private capital? Hey, here's a HUD where I lost my rear, but guess what was made whole?
I think Daniel's used that.
Yes, he has.
And Daniel's one of the most.
Pretty much everything I say on here, I got from Grant or Daniel or Jason Ryan.
Daniel's one of the most skilled private capital raisers I've ever met. He's very great at this kind of stuff too. But yeah, I love that, right? You have to do the right thing. You have to treat your private capital right, especially when you get into the second lien lending stuff, which we will talk about on the other side of this break. So we've kind of set the course here, right? We've kind of understand that, hey, last week we talked a lot about how to start this conversation. This week we're setting the stage of we're going to be talking more negotiations. We're going to be talking more structuring. We're going to be talking more of how we control that conversation. But never forget that the crux of this entire conversation and of this entire deal is that we're treating our private lender right no matter what. The phrase that I will repeat till forever and ever, and I keep repeating, probably I hope tired of hearing me say this, is that we are going to do the right thing, especially when it's not in our favor. And that's going to be one of those scenarios. So when we get back from this next break, we are going to start diving into what are the terms that I offer to our private capital lenders, and how do we get from the initial conversation to wired money coming into a
And I
account.
know we said we weren't going to do this, but I do want to jump on what you said about do the right thing even if it's not in your favor. I would argue that it is in your favor to do the right thing. simply by saying it gives you a negotiation tactic. You get a reputation of always being the good guy.
It's true.
Sorry for interrupting your break.
No, we're all good. All right, we'll be back after this.
Grant, teach me something. I have to make up for the couple of weeks that I messed up.
Right, yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's get into what do we offer, okay? What do we offer to our private lenders? Now, there's a lot of tree branches that go off here, and I want to...
I don't understand that reference.
There's a lot of like angles that you can take. There's a lot of
That
different
makes more sense. Thank you.
different
Got it.
roads. And I want to be ultra clear, because I'm Scooby-Doo, ultra clear, that I'm going to tell you roads that I've taken, but one of the coolest things about this industry is that, dude, if two people agree to something, you're good.
Yeah.
Right? So first and foremost, understand everything is on the table. If two people agree to doing something, y'all are good to go. This is a commercial loan. You've got to get it in writing. You've got to consult your attorneys. You got to make sure that things are lined up like legally on that side. But it's very easy to do that because in commercial law, we're like Wild West. We're able to do kind of whatever. So these are terms that I have found success in. I've got a couple of different major roads that we go down with our private lending, okay? My minimum term with a private lender is 18 months. Now, I know a lot of you watching right now may be like, oh, holy crap, because, yeah, 6 is what we're used to getting. 9 is what we're used to getting, okay? And that's probably because you've asked your lender, so how long are you comfortable with? Mm-hmm. What kind of terms can we get? Or you've said, well, most people do 6 months.
And I don't think it's most people. I think it's most hard money companies.
Most hard monies.
That's the standard, because let's think about it. You buy the house, you do that 2 to 3 months rehab, then you have 2 to 3 months of, oh my God, crap has hit the fan, days on market, and then you get out.
Yeah.
But typically a hard money loan is probably 3 to 4 months with a 2-month buffer. So I think people coming from the hard money world to private capital, they just carry over that mindset of 6 months.
Right. Which there's going to be some other carryovers that I'm going to encourage you to stay away from, i.e. points. I don't pay points to my lenders. I get 8 to 10% on my money with no points. I get 100% LTC and 182% LTV. That's the lending that I get from my buyers.
Loan to cost, loan to value.
Thank you. LTC, loan to cost. In other words, if like most banks, if you're working with a bank, they're going to say, I will lend you the lower of 90% LTC.
Loan to cost.
Or 70% LTV.
Loan to
value.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's like you just said it.
I'm okay. I got trolled the other day. Why is that guy here? So I just got to make sure I troll that guy back by being a doofus.
So we understand that the standard terms that are offered are not necessarily what has to be offered in every time. When I say I get 100% LTC, that means if I get a property that is, so let's look at like that bank loan, right? Like I say, they do the lesser of 70% LTV or 90% LTC. What that means is if you have a $100,000 house, that is its V, that is its value, right? ARV is how we refer to that. If you get that house under contract for $70,000, let's say for $68,000.
That's the cost.
That would be its cost, okay? Well, that's under our LTV. The bank has said, I'll lend you the lesser of 70% LTV or 90% LTC. So at this point in time, we're already under the 70% LTC.
Now,
I'm sorry, LTV.
And not to interrupt, but I just know, I'm sure a comment will jump up here in a second. When you, in your world, loan to cost, is that purely the purchase price or is that purchase price plus
Good question. It's purchase price plus rehab. I gotta stop drinking before these things. It's like 11 in the morning.
Yeah, but so it is like the 68 plus the 20, which would be 88 in a random scenario.
Well, no, it would be like I'm acquiring for 50 and putting 18 in.
Okay.
Right.
So the loan to cost is both the acquisition and the rehab combined.
Right. Right.
Cool.
That's what I'm considering here. So let's say that our cost is $68,000, $50,000 acquisition, $18,000 rehab. I said repairs, which is 68.
What's in that cup?
Water, I promise. It's not vodka. So that would be our LTV. But it's the lesser of the two. So since we're already under the LTV, they're going to be like, well, I'm not just going to give you the whole. We still need you to have some skin in the game, so we're going to do 90% of your loan to cost. So the cost is $68,000. They are going to want to give you a loan for $61,200. Right? Is my math right?
Sure.
Which means that you will have to bring to the table $6,800 to close that deal. Now you are paying the lesser of 70% LTV or 90% LTC. My terms are 100% LTC, so whatever it costs, full rehab, full acquisition, that's what I get from my lender. I also have a maximum of 82% LTV, meaning that I can buy it all the way up to 82% of the ARV. In other words, if a $50,000 acquisition and a $32,000 rehab, that would be $82,000. If the ARV is 100, I'm in at 82%.
And I want to jump in right here because I'm sure a lot of people watching right now are going, wow, that seems way better than what I'm used to. I'm sure that didn't happen overnight. I'm sure there was a gradual pace to get there, and then also it's all, like you said before, it's all a negotiation. So it's not like, hey, here's what I want. It's
right.
You probably asked for 100% you probably asked for 100% at 3%, and eventually y'all got to where you're at.
Yeah. So to that point, that is one of the key features, one of the key strategies to getting your private capital. When you're starting out, it's kind of like in real estate. Like when my first few deals that I did, I made less money on those deals than I would make now. I wouldn't do those deals anymore.
But you still made money.
But I still made money, and I needed to get some deals under my belt, right? So when you're starting, maybe you do pay 12%, right? If you haven't done deals before, maybe you do pay that 12%.
But 4 years ago, it was probably 14 to 16%.
Might have been,
so
right?
Perspective.
Right, totally. So we have to understand that when you're very first getting in, what is interest? And this is going to be one of those questions that I hate for people to ask me because I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to answer, but let me ask you this. What dictates the difference between an interest rate that one person gets versus another person?
It depends. I mean, that's our favorite real estate
It
answer
is.
ever. It depends on maybe they are new to the business and actually look at credit score. And the reason I say it like that is I don't know the last time anybody actually looked at somebody's credit score.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh, and that's another thing. I don't sign personally on these loans. They're all from the LLC. It's
Right.
completely non-recourse.
So credit
interest
never comes into
yeah,
play.
credit never comes into play. So interest is a reflection of risk. That's the thing I was going for.
I was going to go like a 30-minute tangent of really defining. Clearly, it was rhetorical and didn't
Well,
want my input.
I was going to see if you got it, but it's like I said, I hate those kinds of when people ask me. I'm like, I don't know what you're going for. That's a very specific answer. How did you expect? Interest is a reflection
Ryan
of.
was wrong.
No, Ryan was
All
right.
The comments wrong.
Interest is a reflection of risk.
Yeah.
So if you are a riskier loan, you are going to pay more interest. Now, when you start these conversations, when you're starting your negotiations with your private money lender, maybe you do have to offer 12% to get them on board for you, okay? Offer what it takes to get the deal done. Guys, I'll tell you something. I'm closing a deal today, tomorrow, Friday, I don't know. This week, we're closing a deal. I had a 16% interest loan on this. Long story short, I get 8% from other people. I paid 16% to this dude because I needed to for that particular deal. But the deal was sweet enough that it didn't matter what I was paying on interest. Like I accepted less of a profit, but we still made a profit.
And I would throw in there also not to be too concerned about interest rates, especially when you're first starting out, because think of it in terms of like a scorecard. The more deals that you have done that you've made money, or let's not even worry about making money. The more deals that you've done where you've paid back your private capital, you are building a portfolio. You're building like this little book that you can like, hey, Grant, we're at the Quest Trust event. You've got money, I've got deals. I'd like to place your capital. Here's all the HUDs I've done the past quarter. Check it out.
Yeah, absolutely, and that can absolutely help. You know, I'm a talker. I'm a salesman, right? I've never shown HUDs to any of my lenders. I've never given a collateral package to any of my. Well, I take that back. I've done a. There's one lender of mine that has about $5 million that she likes to get like a little. I call it my asset summary review. I give her just a little one pager with some comps.
You show her your ass.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh. So what
Sorry,
happens
my bad.
is
I apologize.
you offer what it takes to get you some private money when you start. And then that's your key. It's kind of like in middle school when there's the middle school dance and like there's boys on one side, girls on the other side, and all it takes is like that first person to go like ask somebody to dance, and then when people see, okay, it's okay to dance with this person, that person's going to keep getting asked to dance over and over again. We break that seal, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get money at whatever it takes to get that money and still make you money. And then from that point on, you now have a beautiful negotiation strategy called social proof. And what you're able to do from that point on is now anytime you talk to your next networking partners and you pose your question, what do you have? Are you leveraging time, money, or time, capital, or knowledge? And capital is the answer. And you say, oh, well, that's how we can work together, is because I'm getting deals all the time, and no matter how much capital we have, we're always going to spend it.
Yeah, and I just work with Steve over there.
And what you say is, because you're going to create that conversation, they're going to say, well, what kind of terms do you do? And now you get to say, well, right now what I'm paying my private lenders is 12%. So if you want me to use your capital instead, you just need to beat that rate, and I'll start putting my deals to you instead of them.
And then a call back to last week, that's a subtle way of offering them versus trying to seek them out.
And you make them chase you.
Yeah.
You're making them chase you. People want to chase. I think we've all had that person of the opposite sex that was like super about you, and it was just you're like, ah, man, like chill out, jeez, like you're not about it. Because they're chasing so hard, it's unattractive,
Yeah,
right?
it's typically me being the chaser.
And so, what I know, can you chase me a little bit harder? Because I don't see that.
Well, it didn't work for so many years. I'm figuring if I back off, maybe you'll come
Maybe
back.
you're taking my negotiation tactics to heart. So you've got to kind of play the hardball a little bit, right? You're setting it up, and it's like, look, I can help you get where you want to go. I can be your guide, but if you want me to work with you, if you want me, if you want the one that everybody's asking to dance with,
Right.
you need to have a better offer than the people I'm currently dancing with, because I already have a relationship with them. If you want me to leave this relationship I've already built and go to you, you just got to beat their number, right?
And on that, it doesn't matter what number you're talking about. If you start at 12 for like $100,000, maybe the next person, well, like, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for 200,000 at 11.
Yeah.
And that doesn't end. It goes all the way up to, well, I'm looking for 2 million at 8%.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I get 8%
keeps-
money now.
It's
It's just, you just keep that. I don't know why I call it a seesaw, because that's not really a great analogy, but it's kind of a seesaw of, like, in effect, where you're like, look, this is what I get. If you want something, let's work together, right? And you kind of, stair step maybe is better.
mining?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, mining. So you tell them, look, this is what I get. If you want me to use you instead, if you can beat that, do like 11%, I'll send you my next deal and we can work together. And it makes that, if you're not overly pushing to get them, then they're like, oh, okay. The desperate one is the one that people are wary to work with, right? Why are you desperate? Why do you need me so bad? Something's wrong here. We don't need them. They need us. It's all structured in that. So
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, it's the same thing like if you normally buy a widget at Best Buy and then all of a sudden you've got, is Office Depot
very
still
industry term there, a widget. I like that.
Then you've got like an Office Depot saying, hey, I could sell you the same widget. You're like, well, I already have a relationship with Best Buy. Why would I go to you? Well, I could match it. It's like, I don't give a crap about your matching. I already got my widget.
I
over
have
here.
a relationship
I already
with this,
have
yeah.
this. Okay, well, I can do it cheaper. Oh, okay, now we're talking.
So then the conversation becomes, what are the terms, right? Once you've established that they have capital to place, and I've kind of skipped around a little bit by talking about the interest rate thing, because honestly that comes a little bit after this section of what I'm talking about. But the next kind of part of that conversation that you have with them is they're going to say something like, well, what are the terms? Like, what can you pay? And what most people like to say is, well, what do you need? What are you looking for? That's not right. That's not the right way to do it, right? I think one of the problems that many of us have with our call to action, and this is just a call to action at the end of the day, one of the problems that people have with our call to actions is that we're not confident enough in our product to give a straight up, you should marry me call to action. What we try to do is we try to do these passive call to actions. These, well, what do you want? Maybe I can meet that, right?
Because we're afraid of rejection.
We're afraid of rejection. And that shows, and that doesn't get anywhere. And all that ends up with is a, oh man, I met this guy that we can probably do some lending with. I'll have to have another meeting with him. Nah, man, you need to get something set up right then and there that says we are a relationship that's going to work. You set up another time. I'll take you out to lunch. Let's talk a little bit more in detail, that kind of stuff. But we need to get something out in front of them that shows that we're willing, we're confident enough in our product that we can dictate that call to action and say, this is what I can offer you, okay? So when we say that, my response is always in this way. When they ask us about the what are you looking to pay, what kind of terms can you do, I'm going to say, well, here's the thing. I'm a long-term investment guy. You make more money the longer you hold things. It's having that interest rate out there means that you're able to not have to worry about the replacing of funds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm a long-term guy. So my preference is that we do like a 30 or a 20-year loan. That's my preference, okay? And I've got a few lenders that will do those fully amortizing loans with us. And you kind of see how they feel about that, right? Sometimes they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good, right? And if they're like, oh, no, I'm not in on long-term deals like that, and you're okay, well, that's cool. So my next step for my next like section of type of lending would be, I still, for cash flow sake, would like to do a 20 or 30-year amortization. But if you need to pull out cash a little bit sooner, let's set up like a 5 or 10-year call.
So you're doing terms on like, and forgive me if I misheard it, like a blanket loan versus a loan per deal?
No, I do a loan per deal. Yeah, I do a loan per deal.
Well,
I'm just telling them when we're having this conversation that I have found out through the conversation that you heard us, we opened this up last week about how much capital do you have. At this point in time, as a reference of last week, I'm assuming that they're in that section. Remember how we drew the line and said there's going to be two conversations you have. Conversation with somebody who doesn't have enough to fund an entire deal, and a conversation with somebody that has enough money to fund an entire deal.
One thing I wanted to jump on before we go too far was we were talking about terms. Like the thing about real estate is there's fundamentally like core concepts. Like networking is so huge. Terms is so huge. And the answer of it depends on every single question.
Yeah.
And the reason it depends is because of concepts like the terms. So, I just want to throw that out there because it is such a powerful concept and make it look like I know something. But anyway,
you're absolutely right. Yeah, no, for sure.
I just wanted to really tie that up.
So I'll tell you, one of the things, like I understand, and I'll let you guys know this too, if you're inexperienced in finding 20 to 30-year fully amortizing money is hard. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Finding second lien money and 20 to 30-year fully ammed money is hard. Fully amortizing means that you've got a loan that gets paid off entirely in equal payments over a 20 or 30-year payment. What that means is we start paying you today, and for the next 360 months we keep paying you, and at the end of that time frame, we don't owe you anything more. A balloon payment would say, hey, let's amortize. Let's make this payment as though I'm going to pay it to you for 30 years. But whatever my principal balance, my outstanding principal balance, my unpaid principal balance, my UPB, whatever that UPB is in 5 years, I owe it to you in 5 years. On month 60, I got to pay you off whatever I still owe you. That's what a balloon is, okay? Now that is much more common to get. But if you start off with I can do a 6-month loan term, but I would really like to do a 30-year AM with a 5-year call, you're never going to get it. If you start off with, what I really like to work with people on is 20 or 30 years, and you get a no from that, and you say, oh, okay, so the no is because you want it to get paid off more quickly, and they say, yeah, I've got to get this paid off more quickly. Now you are responding to gosh, I always forget this word. What is the word that like when somebody has is that a rebuttal?
Or,
we give the rebuttal.
Crap, now you got me broken now. It's not a rejection.
Yeah.
It's a
objection? I don't know.
Drop in the comments.
Yeah,
Help
right.
us out.
So anyway, the thing that they're going to come back with is going to be, I want it to get paid off more or more quickly. And so now we are not a hammer looking for a nail. If I had said, well, let's just go ahead and do this from the start, that's just a package I have in my mind. If I let them tell me I don't want to do that because of this, and then I have a response for that, now I'm responding to their needs. Now I'm showing them that I'm actively listening to what they want and I'm solving their problems. This is the reason why I do not encourage you and I know this may be an unpopular decision, or I'm sorry, an unpopular opinion, because I know a lot of people that take I give my seller 3 offers and I let them choose. I vehemently disagree with that, and I think that that's the wrong way of going about doing things. I think that it's outdated. I think that it's not a good closing tactic, and I will argue that to the death, and I will also flex on you and say that I have an 88 to 90% conversion rate on the first appointment in getting a contract, and the way that I do it is I give an offer, I beat that offer up until I get a no, and then I give them my second offer. But now I get to give, but now I get to shape that second offer and my pitch as a response to what they have told me they want, rather than if I just say, hey, here are 3 ways that I can buy your house, you choose one. Not only does that put them into an analysis paralysis, but it tells them that I don't care what they want. This is what I can do and you better choose. But if I give them one offer, hey, this is going to be what works really well for me, does that work for you? And they say no, and I say why no, and they tell me why, and they say, okay, well I can solve that with offer 2. Now I'm responding to them, and now they feel like they're getting a concession, and now they are more willing to work with me on this deal. So similarly here, we're starting big, just like any kind of negotiation would, and then we're working our way back from that. So we are starting, I want 30-year fully am, and then they're saying I want it sooner, and you say, okay, cool, I can do a 5 to 10-year call. And you try to work that. Now, if you are working that angle, and they're still like, yeah, I mean, that's way far out. Like, I can place my capital much more quickly and get that turning. That is when we start talking about doing the shorter term loan, okay? When we go back to that point in time and we start talking about, okay, I can do a 18-month term, my response at that point in time is, okay, like I say, we can do a 20 or 30-year AM with a 5 or 10-year call. If we negotiate that and it doesn't come to an answer of yes, then I'm going to go and say, okay, well, here's the thing. My minimum term is 18 months. Because, okay, this is the big key word, because. For those of you who have watched, you know that, and I'm going to just make a note to myself so that I don't get so distracted.
Am I distracting you?
No, I'm just making sure I get back to my point. I say my minimum term is 18 months because. The reason why because is so powerful, if those of you who have not followed me for long enough to see my negotiation tips, Stanford University did a study back in the late 90s, back when Xerox machines were a thing, right? And I've talked about this a couple of times on Grant Teach Me Something. Long story long, they went to a library where there was a long line of people. They had actors do this so that they could deliver the line like very controlled, like in the same exact way, right, as best as possible. And they went to the very front of the line and they said, excuse me, may I cut in line to make some copies? And they had I think a low 30s, like 33% compliance rate. They then went back, and this is like this is a legit psychological study. So they had lots of data to pull into this. Then they went back and they said, excuse me, may I cut in line because to make some copies because I'm running late. They got a 97 or a 96% compliance rate. Then they went back and they said, excuse me, may I cut in line to make some copies because I need to make these copies. They had a 94% compliance rate. They had almost an identical compliance rate with entirely circular reasoning, okay? There was no real reason why may I cut in line because I need to make some copies because I need to make copies matters. But we are programmed as humans to want to know the why. That is why is so important in our marketing and how we negotiate.
I wonder if that would work on like a date. We need to go out on a date because we need to go out on a date.
Try it. Let me know how it goes.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. Sorry, I cut you off.
So when I say, well, my minimum term is 18 months, we understand that if they have experience in the industry, they maybe have been thinking 6 to 9 months. But we're going to give them that because. And I'm going to say, my minimum term is 18 months because what that gives me time to do is it gives me 6 months to buy the property, rehab the property, and load the property with a buyer. I'm then going to season that note for 12 months, and now I have a very marketable note to sell on the secondary market, which will allow me to cash you out, or I can refinance that note because I've got a seasoned note, right? This opens up the possibilities for us getting that cashed out with many different options. And I've never had a problem with that. I've never had to do a loan term for less than 18 months because I explained why it is and it makes sense.
I think we're about to go to another break, but for everybody that's watching on the replay, I know there was a lot of just letting Grant just go. And the reason I want to do that is because he was just basically doing negotiation strategies over and over and over. And I implore everybody to rewatch that section the past, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes, because you were just like dropping, they're not like major bombs of nuggets, but they were like, quick little things that you can say when you're talking to people at your networking events, at your Quest events. Very powerful stuff.
I believe so. I mean, this is very much almost a script. It's not necessarily a script as much as it is a flow chart, right? I'm giving you the stops that you need to make along the way from creating that conversation, which we talked about last week, to continuing that and nurturing that conversation into these are the terms that I can offer. So I've got actually something really cool for you that we're going to talk about on the other side of the break. I call it my debt-free debt program. I think you guys are going to love this. So really, seriously, stay tuned because this is going to be just a massive golden nugget for you. So when we come back from the break, we will be talking about debt-free debt.
That's what we need. We need a mind-blowing. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for watching so far. We said before when we started, we're not really doing questions right now, but we will respond later throughout the day, and then obviously forevermore. So keep the question coming. We see the love now, so very appreciative. Also, the thing you were talking about with the Xerox, that came from which favorite book of yours?
That comes from, it is Influence, right?
It
yeah,
was.
okay. Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion.
So what I
Robert
was going to
Cialdini.
say is, for what I'm going to do is everybody that shares this on YouTube, and I'm going to drop a link here shortly to a form. What I need you to do is share the YouTube, not the Facebook, the YouTube link of this video. What I'll do is everybody that does it today, I'll do like a competition of those people. So I'll pick maybe one or two of those people that done it, and you'll get that book.
Absolutely.
So just what I need you to do is just click on the form, do a screenshot, upload that, and then we'll do a random comment picker, not a comment picker, a random picker of those people that submit it, and you'll get the book Influence.
And what an awesome way. I mean, honestly, guys, Influence is one of the top 3 most influential books that I have ever read to my company and my success. It's been huge. It took my conversion rate from being in the 20s and 30s to being in the upper 80s because of the psychology that goes by. I don't care what old boy that used to negotiate back in the 80s was so successful at, because that's anecdotal and there's no science behind that. Influence gives you the science behind why a brain says yes, and that is what I care about. It's one of the reasons, I mean, this is a tangent, but that's one of the reasons I'm not a big believer in, I don't really like, a lot of people like this book. It's Never Split the Difference.
You don't like that one?
I took a couple of things away from it, but largely I feel like the negotiation tactics in it are wildly outdated, and people have caught on to them, and they don't work anymore. And the problem is that they give you a fad negotiation rather than the psychology behind it. It's the difference between doing a paleo diet versus just freaking eating good portions of food. Like one of them is the way that bodies work, and one of them is a thing that is unsustainable and works right now, right?
So we were actually talking about this the other day about how, negotiating with the FBI and the cops, and they probably don't work that much anymore because too many people, once they walked out, they got shot. That's from you could show yourself, Thomas, on that one.
Yeah, Thomas is our wonderful, like.
That was a Thomas story.
he's one of my favorite quotables. I love this guy. I've known Thomas since I was in like 6th grade. So let's talk about debt-free debt. This is a really, really cool program. And again, guys, please comment. We are going to get to this, but I do have to get over to our mastermind. Debt-free debt is a program that I came up with in that scenario where I said, "Oh crap, I have said." This happened the Friday before Christmas. I got 7 deals in one day, and guys, I already have 4 rehabs that I'm running right now. I can't afford, just straight up, I can't afford 11 vacant houses. it just doesn't make sense. You know, I'll be very open and honest here, and I think that's one of the great things about Propelio, and that's one of the great things that we have gotten to set this standard of as being the first show, and I'm going to tout us up on that, is that we've set a standard of being open and honest about what's really going on. Guys, when I split from my partner last year, overnight, I lost 40% of my cash flow and my expenses over doubled, right?
Over doubled?
Over doubled, like more than twice, because I had to move out, get my own office. I had to give raises to people who were going to have to start working harder. I had to hire out, you know, that kind of stuff. That's a big deal. I can't afford 11 houses vacant right now. So we had to get creative about it. And here's one of the ways that I've started structuring my private money, which I think is going to be very cool for us. And actually, I'm working with Eddie Speed on a variant of this that's going to be very cool for you guys once that plays out, because Eddie Speed has way too much money, and we're going to end up brokering that stuff out to you guys in one way or another. So get excited about that. Keep on the line. Keep watching. Watch every week, because one of these weeks I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, hey guys, we've got a few $1 million that we need to place. Come to me, and this is how it's going to work. Fully fund your deal up front with the private money. No debt service on that private money until there's somebody in the house and the house is income producing. Once that occurs, all of the debt that has accrued for that first 6 months gets priority. It gets paid back first, okay? Once that is all paid back and this house is now truly profitable, you give away 20% of the profits of that house to your private lender as a trade for not having to pay debt service, okay? So put a like, put a share, comment on here, hashtag yes please, if that is something that you would be interested in. Would you be interested in me fully funding your deal? And this is months away, right?
No, I'm just thinking, because it's like, and I don't mean to interrupt your plug, but it's just like, people, you don't understand what I'm getting.
Well, it's huge.
It's huge.
It is. It is huge,
Yeah.
because I know, because I'm speaking from an area.
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
came from no money. I didn't have money when I grew up. I used to not tell that story at all. I think I overhammer it now, but the truth is, I didn't come from money. When I got into real estate, I quit my job with $1,500 to put into real estate, right? And through using other people's money and through leveraging creative strategies like I'm teaching you guys, I was a millionaire within 5 years. It can be done. But boy, let me tell you, something that would have been cool is if I only had to give up 20% of my deal to get that money. I got that money through having partnerships with some phenomenal dudes in the industry, but I was giving up 66% of my deal to get it funded by other people, because basically what it boiled down to is I got brought into a company that had 2 other owners, and I was the one that was really doing everything. And I would get 33% of those profits, and the other 2 would get 33% of it.
Do you have like some sort of lead form on creative cash flow?
I don't. Not for the.
You might want to build one.
Yeah,
Just like, hey,
that's true.
If you want information.
Well, we're not mature enough into this because I'm not. But that's
Like
a great
trip.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's going to be something that we have to offer you, but that's not something that I necessarily, like, I'm not telling you this as a pitch to like, oh, use me for your money. What I'm telling you this is an education of, hey, did you ever think about this? Did you ever think about maybe you could trade 20% of your deal to not have to have debt service on that deal? And now you're raising your ROI for your lender significantly. Give them 20% or 30% or whatever of your, or 40 or 50, or if you're working with me, give 70, I'm kidding, 20-ish% to your lender to not have to have debt service unless the property is income producing. So let's look at how that looks, okay? You find a deal, and the deal is a $120,000 deal, all in. Your total basis, your acquisition, it's $100,000 in acquisition, $20,000 in rehab. You're in for $120,000. You're paying 10% interest to your lender, which means that $1,000 a month of interest is accruing. Let's just act interest only for now. Oh, dang, I didn't talk about interest only versus amortizing. We'll address that. So with an interest only loan, that is how hard money works. Just as we explained amortization means, hey, we start making payments on this day. Every payment has interest and principal being paid to it until the end, in which case either if it's a balloon, you've still got a balance you got to pay, or if it's a fully amortized loan, you don't owe anything left. If it is an interest only loan, that's what I do with my 18-month guys. My guys that are doing 18-month terms, that's interest only. And so what that means is, in this example, we've got a $120,000 loan. If it's 10% interest, that means annually, that is an annualized interest rate. Annually, we would be paying that lender $12,000. So if you split that by 12, every month you owe that lender $1,000. Okay? So we're going to act like this is an interest-only scenario. So you spend 6 months rehabbing the property, putting a buyer into the property.
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month. You've accrued 6 months of interest that you owe to that lender. That lender now has the right to, like, let's say that we take that property and we sell it with owner financing, which you guys know I'm a huge fan of. $120,000 house. We take a $12,000 down payment. We're going to take 6 of that $12,000 down payment and pay our lender back the interest that has accrued. Okay? At that point in time, you will likely need to pay points. This is going to be very dependent on where you're at. I'll tell you very frankly, if you're going through the money that we're setting up, it's going to be points that you have to pay. 3 or 4 points are going to come out up front. But those points will also accrue. Those will not be due until that first pay. So you've got $6,000 that needs to get paid back from your down payment. You've got your points that need to get paid back from your down payment. So maybe you're left with a $4,000 net profit from your down payment. Well, now your lender gets 20% of that $4,000. Your lender gets 20% of the cash flow, and if you ever sell the note or get paid off or whatever way, they get 20% of that. Guys, I will tell you firsthand that is absolutely 100% worth 20% of your deal.
So basically what you're saying is, I've got a deal, like I'm just a guy, I have a deal, but I have no access to capital. Hey, Eddie, Grant, Nuco, because it's not ready yet, I want your money.
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, cool, we want 20% of the deal, and don't worry about paying us until it's all good to go.
Right.
And then that's when you start paying, because you're still going to, anywhere you go, you're going to be paying the interest, you're going to be paying points, whatever. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is that's all on the backside.
Right.
And then along with the backside, the 20% JV partner.
Yeah.
That's number, huge. That's easy.
It's massive. It's massive. And that number might change. But let me just say from that 20% number, what I am offering 20% to my lenders.
Right.
So if you are in that situation where you've got some capital and you want to place it, I can place that for you. I can give you a good offer, and I will give you 20%. I don't pay points though, but what I will say is that once we do kind of formulate that and kind of get that pushed out, there are going to be points. That number might not be 20, it might be 25, it might be 30. I don't know. We'll get that all figured out. But understand that again, I'm not asking you to do anything that I wouldn't have done, and this isn't for everybody. When I say it's something I wouldn't have done, I just got through saying every deal I did, the first like 60 to 80 deals that I did, I only got 33% of that deal. Mm-hmm. I worked my ass off, 18-hour days, to get 33% of that deal. But you know what that did? Is that set me up to be a millionaire within 5 years and have my own TV show. You know what I mean?
I love that he calls it TV show.
It's Propelio TV.
But the thing about that is the huge takeaway is it's not a sales pitch, because this thing doesn't exist yet. It's going to. But the takeaway for you today would be everything he just said, because earlier in this episode, we talked about how these are commercial loans, so it's very wild, wild west. If you agree, they agree, it's a deal. Mm-hmm. Take everything Grant just said, go to Quest, or go to I keep giving Quest shout. They're the only people I know that have those.
Well, Quest is a good.
GFW Real Estate or Propelio Meetup, whatever. You meet some people and be like, hey, let's do a deal together. Do you have money? And if they're not cool, or maybe you don't have the cash flow to pay, the carry, set something up like that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be with Grant. It doesn't have to be with Eddie.
Absolutely.
Or Mitch.
Yeah.
It could be with anybody you talk to. Be like, hey, I got a deal. Let's work together. Mm-hmm. And you creatively, pun intended, a pun intent. It's a pun intent. Get there to where you creatively structure a deal that works for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, by the way, from a technical standpoint, that can just be put in the note. Mm-hmm. It's just straight up in the note. It's not even a JV partner, which makes it easy to work with IRAs, because IRAs, when you start doing JVs with an IRA, it gets a little bit more complicated. But if it's just a straight up promissory note lending, that's easy. We can put this kind of stuff in a promissory note. So that's a really cool golden nugget for you guys. Yeah. This is a creative way that people aren't really doing this. To get into deals without you having to have the cash to hold. So this should just open the doors for you guys and open your minds. Now, we're coming up on the end here. We do, again, I do have to get out of here, but I want to, again, draw y'all's attention. Friend me on Facebook. Watch this afternoon at 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern. Me, Mitch Steven, and Eddie Speed are all going to go live on my Facebook, and we're going to put in front of you what is going on in legislature, because whether we like it or not, legislature's going down, and some of the stuff that's being proposed can be very detrimental to investing. And even if you're not into real estate or into creative real estate right now, like wraps and all that kind of stuff, we have to be very aware that there's this stair-step effect. You know, municipalities have essentially found a way to tax landlords by saying you have to get an inspection, and this inspection costs $100. Even though if you were going to buy the house and live in it, you don't have to do that. It's a tax on landlords that got passed. You know, a contract for deed here in Texas used to be great. It's great in other states. But it got ruined because there were a few bad apples and not enough of us investors stood up for ourselves. So now we can't use a great strategy. They're coming after wraps right now. Next, they might come after landlording in general. Who knows? We have to have a lobby effort. So please tune in at 3:30 on my personal Facebook so that we can tell you guys about what's going on there.
And we'll drop a link.
We'll drop a link, yeah.
Later, not necessarily in the comments, but like we can come back and re-edit the copy at top.
Good, good, absolutely. So guys, you know, those are our major parts of structuring this private money. We talked last week about how to create the conversation. We talked this week about what are the terms that get offered and how do you kind of negotiate people down on their terms, and what is a really cool strategy, like again, I call it my debt-free debt strategy, that you can get that. We are active in the political realm too. You got to know about that side of things. And I will finish up with, you know, creativecashflow.com. Again, that's where I come from. This is a partnership that you see between creativecashflow.com and Propelio because we share a vision, and that vision is helping you guys buy more houses through giving you real and actionable information and knowledge. So that's been a drive of mine, and I really am passionate about that. If you like how I teach, if you like the strategies that you're learning here, check me out, creativecashflow.com. Check me out at propelio.com/academy. I've got a great module on seller financing on there, and I've got a lot more exclusive information on creativecashflow.com that you can learn from me, as well as our weekly Q&A session. But please don't forget, none of this is possible without that piece of software right here, which is a phenomenal piece of software that...
Propelio.com. So as a real estate investor, there are some, again, we were talking about the core fundamentals. You've got the it depends, you've got the networking, and you've got the terms of deals. Well, as an investor, you also have core things that it takes to be an investor. You need leads. Guess what? Propelio.com has leads. You need to be able to determine how much a property is worth, determining the ARV, the after repaired value. So you need access to true MLS comps. Because Propelio is a broker's website, you have that ability. And websites. You know, nobody, if Grant and I come and we're going at each other towards a deal, and Grant has Grant_pile ***129er
at hotmail.com
at hotmailbeer.com versus Ryan at Ryan Buys Houses, who's going to be taken more seriously?
Right.
You know, so having a website is crucial to being a more professional an investor. So Propelio.com, leads, comps, websites. You know, ultimately that's what it is. Check us out. 7-day free trial.
Yep.
No credit card needed.
And I'll tell you right now, I mean, I had MLS access. I was an unlicensed assistant for somebody, so I let that lapse. I only use Propelio, and that's not because I like the guys at Propelio. It's because I like their software, right? And that's what our company uses to get into it. So, guys, I mean, I do like the guys at Propelio, but that's not the reason. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Tune in next week. I'm working to have Connor Steinbrook here, who is just, as you guys know, is a phenomenal resource. You may know him through his semi-recent EXP push, but what you may not know about him is he made a ton of money on virtual wholesaling. So we're going to talk about wholesaling and kind of how he built that empire for himself, and some kind of cool stories. Did you know that he was a multimillionaire off of poker back in the day?
I did.
By the time he was 19. So we'll talk about some cool stories with that and some tips and tricks on how to get into the wholesaling world for you, because there's a tool belt of tools that we all need to have to be successful in this industry. So thank you for joining me. Tune in next week and we'll tell you some really cool strategies on how to make more money and buy more houses.
On Grant, teach me something. Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.